And welcome back to the Standard Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jono, and today I'm going to be bringing you a post-combine episode breaking down some of the risers and fallers going into this NFL draft and what the outlook may be for them in the NFL. Let's jump into it. All right, let's start it off here. Big news in the NFL. Mike Evans was given an extension, a 2-year deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That locks him in for the next 2 seasons, hopefully next 2,000-yard seasons, to cap off his 10 consecutive. Broncos released Russell Wilson. That was not a surprise. We knew that was going to happen, especially based off of the end of last season. However, it is going to hit them money-wise with the cap. Interested to see. A lot of suitors are in need of a quarterback. You've got Raiders, you've got Pittsburgh, you've got Atlanta, 3 teams that could benefit off of getting Russell Wilson. Or is he out of football altogether? We'll see in the upcoming days. Dalton Schultz signs a 3-year deal extension with the Texans. That's big because last year he went over there and took a lighter deal than he was offered for other teams. And it ended up working well in his favor. Obviously, now he's got an extension, but I think it benefits the Texans a lot. He pretty much gave you similar numbers to the Cowboys from the season prior as with the Texans. So looking to build off that season. He did miss a couple games with injury. I like this young Texans team, and with losing a couple free agent wide receivers, he should be in a good, solid role with C.J. Stroud. Michael Pittman, franchise tag with the Indianapolis Colts. That is a big news story, too, because he's tagged, not extended, and he wasn't left to go to free agency. So the tag here locks him in for the year with the Colts with Anthony Richardson, which I do like. He's going to be a lot more effective moving forward, even though he was a target hog at the end. Without Anthony Richardson, I think Richardson's going to find his number 1 wide receiver in him as well. And lastly, somebody who was not tagged and not going to be tagged, which was already alluded to earlier, is Saquon Barkley. He is going to test free agency, and as a Giants fan, I don't love it. However, we'll see. It's not that he's going to be crawling back to the Giants, but it gives the Giants an opportunity for somebody to make an offer for him, and if it's less money than the Giants were willing to pay him, maybe we get him back for a decent deal, and he ends his career in the Big Blue. That's the news and notes as of Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. Look for new things to pop up here and there, especially with the season officially starting March 12th, and we are getting closer and closer to the NFL draft next month. Let's talk a little bit about the Combine here. There weren't a lot of standouts besides a couple big record-breaking performances, but I will say in terms of this Combine, missing out on the top quarterbacks, missing out on a couple top wide receivers, on one of the top tight ends here too as well. I think the biggest takeaway point here is there are some great players that improved their stock, and there's some players here that did fall off of where they would have been just based on metrics. And again, you have game speed, they call game speed versus track speed, test speed. Some people test better, some people play on the field better. We know that. But there's a reason why they still go and evaluate these players year after year. One, honestly, the NFL probably makes money off of us all watching it. But 2, it gives everybody an opportunity to really see these people in person at a close-up vantage point. Let's talk about the quarterbacks here, because the big guys were not here to perform, and that's okay. We kind of know what we're getting out of Caleb Williams and Daniels as well. Michael Penix I thought had a great combine workout, keeping him in the top 5 in terms of quarterbacks that are going to be coming off the board. I think it just may bump him up possibly to that first round mark, if not early second round. But J.J. McCarthy kind of backed up his national championship with a great performance at the Combine. So much so that all the talk that's been all over the news at ESPN and all the other Good Morning Football shows is people are thinking he should be a top 10 pick in the draft here. And that being said, I don't see why he couldn't be. He's got the pedigree. He's got the coaching that he got from Harbaugh coming into here. I think he's going to be game ready for a team as well. being that it'd be a top 10 pick, you get those top 3 quarterbacks out of the way. He could be the 4 pick. Penix could be the 4 pick. He could be the 5. You could see him going to somewhere like the New York Giants after the news today broke that they have buyer's remorse with Daniel Jones. Could be the New York Giants. Could be the Atlanta Falcons at 8. Hey, could even be the Vikings at 11 jumping up to as well. So something to watch here is people are starting to believe in McCarthy here. The one thing we got to watch out all the time about these young quarterbacks coming into situations that have great workouts and great combines is you can have the Zach Wilson effect. He had a fantastic workout, and it bumped him all the way up to the pick for the Jets that season, and look what that's come to be. Also, these young guys are going into programs that may not be ready for them in this quarterback spot, and they're set up to fail. We'll see. I think McCarthy's going to go somewhere that's got some pieces around him, unless he goes to the Giants and they don't fill out those other spots later on in this draft. Let's talk about Joe Milton, the other quarterback I want to touch on too, who kind of bumped his stock up a bit. He had an up and down season. I think everybody expected a lot more from him in Tennessee. However, we know he's got a cannon. We know he's got the arm strength to do it, and he showed off that arm strength throwing a in-air 73-yard bomb during his workout, and he showed it off in the arm strength test as well. I think this guy is going to be probably a day 2 pick just because he's got potential and he's got the arm strength to mold into something. He's got the maneuverability in the pocket, and he's got the ability to scramble as well. He's got the size. There's a lot of things going for him, and if people love Anthony Richardson so much, I don't know why people wouldn't like Joe Milton either, and I'm not calling him Richardson light here because Richardson hasn't proven himself in the NFL yet either. So to me, Joe Milton has an opportunity to slide into a team that's got a veteran quarterback that he can take over in the near future. Running backs wise, this is one of those drafts that you don't have a top running back going in the first round. We've had a couple with your Bijans, your Saquons, your Zekes. This is one of those drafts where you go back to, hey, these are good running backs, but you don't have a once-in-a-generational type of talent that's going to be drafted. So to me, Jalen Wright, running back out of Tennessee, he did a fantastic job in this combine in terms of all his metrics. I think he's bumped his stock up to being one of the top 3 off the board. And we're looking at probably day 2 picks. You never know. People do sneak in late into round 1 to go grab one of these guys just to make sure they get them. But we've seen the trend in the NFL going where these bell cow backs are coming and going. The aged running backs like Derrick Henry are splitting carries as well and snaps even right now. You can still perform in that way, but you're going to have split backfield. So none of these guys on this list are really jumping out as bell cow backs to really look for. But somebody to draft in your late drafts, dynasty drafts, especially depending upon the teams they go to. But also, if you're doing a standard type of year-long draft, grabbing one of these guys later in your drafts, if he goes to a place where you know he's going to split carries or has an opportunity to take over the role. Heck, if any of these guys, if the Texans don't sign a veteran and one of these guys goes there, there's a chance that one of these guys can break out to be the starting role at some point. Teams like that, you got to look out for. Let's talk about Isaac Guerendo. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but the Louisville running back came in and ran a 4.35 40 at 6 foot, 221 pounds. Absolutely rose his stock up with that metric. I know it is track speed versus game speed, but when you go out there and you can run a sub 4 40 and almost down to a 4.3 40, you are going to catch the eyes of some people because that can be breakaway speed. When you break through the hole or you get around the edge and you take off. I mean, Devon Achane this past season just showed what track speed can do for you. I think this can benefit him greatly, and he's going to be a nice asset to a team as a secondary role, as a 1B or a running back 2 for a program. Trey Benson's the other one that I got excited about because at 6 foot 216, he ran a 4.39 and he runs hard. I think this is a guy that can come in and also be a complement to a backfield that already has people there and has an opportunity to work himself into a lineup. He himself with the 4.39 40 is another sub 4. That's fantastic. Now, Audric Estime out of Notre Dame was one of the top prospects coming into this combine, into this draft, lost some stock. Here's our first faller we're going to talk about. 4.7, 140 in the combine, and all his other metrics were very low amongst the running backs, but worst amongst all the running backs. That's not what you like to see. That type of speed right there is tough to sit there and swallow as a team. I mean, you can look at his game film. He had a great season. He had great opportunities. But if you're looking at someone like Trey Benson, if you're looking at someone like Jalen Wright and Audric, who is in the top 3 in a lot of people's lists, is now fallen out to me outside that top 5. Now, he's got the capability of still being a great back in the NFL, but we're just seeing more and more of these 1-2 punches with running backs. That's the only saving grace he may have, but he has lost his stock a little bit. And again, like I said, these guys aren't day one picks. I'd be surprised if someone grabbed one of these guys in day one. They really, really have to like them as a future of their program. Now, the big thing was the wide receiver group. You have Xavier Worthy setting a combine record at a 4.2 140, along with showing his speed in other drills, along with broad jump and vert. So the one knock on him is his size, obviously, but that was a knock for Devonta Smith as well, and that guy is playing lights out in the NFL right now too. He has an opportunity to go to a program and get drafted by a team higher up than he originally was going to be and make a difference. I could see him being great behind, just like Devonta Smith was, great behind somebody like, I don't know, CeeDee Lamb, great behind, somebody like Justin Jefferson and Addison. I mean, I don't like that as much because Addison's already there, but the point is he can be behind a big X receiver, a big number 1 wide receiver, and make a complete difference because he's going to create mismatches. Because you got to cover the top on a guy that can take the top off a defense. Adonai Mitchell out of Texas, I think, also had his stock rise a little bit. He tested out very well. Him and Worthy, both those guys did a fantastic job. He is the size difference on Worthy. But he also had a fantastic season, only dropping 1 pass this past year, I believe. So I think the two of those guys could be interchangeable in where they are stock-wise. Obviously, you have your top 3 right now that everybody's talking about with Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze. Now, these other guys can sneak up in being top 5 picks as well. There's a couple other people on this list that I do think should be in the top 5 that I do like, depending upon what team they go to. But let's talk about Rome Odunze, top 3 guy. He did do the combine as opposed to the other top guys in Harrison Jr. and Neighbors. To me, Rome looked like he was the smoothest guy on the field. He went through all the drills flawlessly. He looked fantastic the entire time. And to me, if you're going to look at what he did on there versus his metrics, obviously his metrics were what everybody was expecting to be. He didn't disappoint. He didn't wow anybody either in terms of breaking any records. But this guy's got the hands, he's got the size, he's got the finesse, and he just looked overall like he was pro-ready and wasn't nervous. And the only word I could use for him was smooth. It just, everything about him looked smooth the entire combine. Now, somebody who didn't look as smooth at times during the season, but looked smooth during this combine, however, his stock has fallen a little bit just because of his straight speed metrics, is Keon Coleman. He did not test well in the 40 time. He didn't have any wowing metrics in terms of broad jump and vert, but I will say his gauntlet speed was the fastest average speed for the gauntlet drill, which that's the catching drill where they catch a couple balls and they start running a straight line until the last catch where they turn up and go upfield. He averaged over 20 miles per hour. Nobody else, I think, averaged over 18, I believe, if I'm correct. But that shows game speed, and that's what he's trying to preach, and that's what people in his camp are trying to preach is he's got game speed. He's got that game ability to show what it looks like while he's playing the game, not just running in a straight line, which there's obviously some actual benefit to doing that drill so people can see that. And I think he's still a big body, fantastic athlete, acrobatic catcher. He, to me, people are dropping his stock more than they should. I think he's going to be just fine where he is. I think he should sneak in the second half of the first round, maybe the last third of the first round, and go to a team and make a difference for that team because of his ability. One guy that I do like that I think could bump himself up into the top 5 is Xavier Leggett out of South Carolina. This man ran at 6'3", 227, ran a 4.39 40. He looked fantastic all season. He was a factor against some big-time defenses in the SEC. I think he's going to continue to find himself a nice home in the NFL and be a playmaker for a team that drafts him. Now, in terms of the last couple names on here, I adjust my notes. Ladd McConkey, UGA graduate, homebody here, is one guy whose stock rose, but his stock has been rising ever since Senior Bowl. I mean, they talked about how he was somebody that was difficult to cover. He was going to be a problem, and people are saying he's still going to be a problem in the NFL because of the way he can route run. I mean, we talked about people like Wes Welker in the past. You talked about Edelman. You can talk about all these guys that were problems and created mismatches based on their route running and their ability to get open. Ladd McConkey's got the speed. He's got the footwork, the catchability. He showed it at UGA. He showed it at this combine. And I think that's going to take him from a day 2 pick up into top 32. I think he's going to find himself at the back end of that first round getting snagged by one of those top teams in the playoffs to add a compliment. And I wouldn't be surprised if it would be the Kansas City Chiefs, because if they get a hold of him with Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce on the tail end of his career, I think Pat Mahomes will have a better outlet than the people he's been throwing to, especially with MVS getting released. Brian Thomas Jr., another one that I think everybody's talking about, neighbors, but you cannot forget about Brian Thomas. I mean, 4.33 340 at 6'2", 209. He's flying around that field. I think he has an opportunity to, again, go to a program where in the NFL where he is a number 2 guy, but he's playing like a number 1 somewhere. And I think he's going to make one of these teams better. And I think he's going to fall down lower than he should, because there's still going to be some great edge rushers out there and offensive linemen that these teams are going to want to take. And it'll allow some of these other teams in the middle of the pack to be able to grab value at Brian Thomas Jr. And then the other riser here, I have a lot more risers than fallers, just because, I mean, it's tough to talk about fallers, really. Like, you really have to have high draft stock for us to say you're falling. And a lot of them were D linemen, O linemen, linebackers that their stock rose or the stock fall, but we're talking about fantasy impacts here the most. And what are the fantasy impacts the most? Your quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends. So the last wide receiver I want to talk about before I highlight 2 tight ends here is Ricky Pearsall out of Florida. He showed great speed and metrics at the combine, and I think he could be a sneaky day 2 pick. And again, one of those guys he's kind of like on that Xavier Worthy level of he just doesn't have the pedigree through college and the amount of games through college that really show NFL teams what they're really getting in the long term. But I think he's got that smaller frame, but the agility and the speed to complement a big-time receiver in the NFL. So I think he's going to find himself a good team in day 2 pick. And don't be surprised, and keep an eye out for him in your drafts to get him a little bit later, because he can sneak up and be a great kind of finisher to the second half of next fantasy football season. Now, 2 tight ends I want to talk about. One is not necessarily a big riser, but we got late notification that Brock Bowers, UGA, was not going to be testing. Now, the reason I want to highlight this, I think this benefits him more than anything. Not that his metrics were going to shoot to the floor or anything, but like, he is the top prospect at the tight end spot. In fact, he's like one of the biggest tight end prospects in a while. And I think what you have him in a film. He's going to show everything in pro day. He had that ankle surgery at the end. I believe He came back I think he had in November. So he's still healing off of that. If he's not 100%, why even do any drills there? And he has everything to lose and nothing to gain if he's the number one tight end prospect out there. He's right now going as high in some of these mocks as the 5th one to the Chargers, and he's going as low as like 18. So you look at the range of outcomes for him, it's fantastic. So why risk that for any other reason? Heal up, go to a pro day that may help people see what he needs to see. And really, at the end of the day, his film shows everything. But Tip Ryman, he tight end, I believe, out of Illinois, had a great relative athletic score, a great RAS for tight ends here. I think he is somebody that's going to be a day 2 tight end to keep an eye on. Again, the tight end groups here in the NFL are starting to change. You're starting to see this flow of offense really work towards that athletic pass-catching tight end and less about having these blocking tight ends and then having a receiving tight end or just blocking tight ends. You're seeing more and more people trying to fit the mold of your Travis Kelce, fit the mold of your Gronkowskis and tight ends like that. So there's more of them across the league. I mean, Sam Laporta came busting through the barn doors in the NFL this past season and really showed what the future of the tight end position could be. TJ Hawkinson has shown it. So George Kittle, the list can go on, but Dalton Kincaid proved it last year being drafted where he was, Sam Laporta as well. I said it going into last season that there was a chance that 2 rookie tight ends would be inside the top 10 finishing in tight end fantasy. And we didn't have that because Kincaid didn't get the opportunities that he should have had behind Dawson Knox, but we showed it in Sam Laporta. Luke Musgrave had a good stint here and there while he was healthy with Green Bay. I really think you're going to see more and more tight ends coming out of college and this position be more sought after because of what they can do and create mismatches against linebackers. That's all I got for my combine coverage. There's a lot of other players here, so a lot I haven't touched on. If I didn't touch on a player you wanted me to talk about, leave a comment here. Feel free. I'll be happy to get back to you guys on that. Chris also too as well. We'll put a short on somebody if you really want us to highlight them. But as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification button and keep up. We are back week to week with our episodes here and moving in towards that NFL draft where we should be doing a live NFL draft reaction to at least the top 10, but we're going to try and do the entire 32 picks of that first round. Thank you for showing up and tune in next time.